Welcome back. Well, on Tuesday, the Supreme Court postponed its ruling on numerous petitions lodged against Musharraf's bid to run in the presidential elections set for October the 6th. Well, tensions again surround Musharraf's leadership. It is believed that Musharraf will relinquish his position as head of the army if he is re-elected. But fears of being left without a government or a military position mean Musharraf will not give up his uniform before he is sure of victory in the polls. For some Pakistanis, that is simply asking too much. Back in May, Pakistan's highest judicial body ruled against Musharraf's dismissal of a Chief Justice. Controversy exploded. Now Musharraf once again is looking to the Supreme Court for a ruling that could make or break his wavering popularity. However, Musharraf has the power to declare an emergency and impose martial law when he wants. It may shore up his position, but what would it do for democracy in the country? Well, Pakistan waits to see. Well, joining us again in this edition of Inside Story, our guests in Islamabad, Ahmed Raza Khasuri, Pervez Musharraf's lawyer, Raja Asad Hamid, legal correspondent for the Nation newspaper, and in Lahore, Sardar Ayaz Sadiq, an MP from the Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz Party. Thanks for being with us. If I could start with Mr. Hamid. After all the street protests, the actions by the judges, the political parties, can the Supreme Court really afford to say yes to Musharraf, at least without losing a big chunk of credibility?
Well, of course, if they're going to do it that way, it'll dent the image of judiciary, especially what it has regained after the recent events of saying no to the military regime when it tried to get rid of Chief Justice Iftikhar Mohammad Chaudhry. So definitely the court is definitely under the pressure from public, especially in the backdrop of the recent awareness and the challenge that has been posed. And even today's proceedings, Justice Javed Iqbal, a senior member of the August bench that is hearing these petitions, have very categorically said that the law of necessity is not going to be revoked. The law of necessity, which has always facilitated the military dictators in Pakistan, has been buried, and the court is not going to revisit any such philosophy. So, of course, it has a strong challenge in front of it of living up to the expectation of the public and the democratic forces.
In a sense, the role of the judiciary has really been strengthened by the whole Chowdhury episode, hasn't it? And as you said, it's strengthened expectations. Let's go over to Mr. Sadiq. Will your party boycott elections or resign from Parliament if Musharraf is allowed to stand?
For the time being, we have sent in our resignations to our Secretary General of the party. And as our party has decided that the APDM is going to decide the outcome, we have already put in our resignations. They can be used as and when required. If needed, we'll go to the Speaker of the National Assembly and given our resignations also. There's not a single person from our party who has resisted or shown reluctance in giving this resignation. And let me tell you one thing, that the Supreme Court, the entire nation wants the Supreme Court to be strong. Reason being that they feel in this unjust situation which has been going on for the last 8 years, we see a place where we can get some justice. The judiciary played a very good role in the Chief Justice's case, but it was their brother's case and justice was provided. Now the entire nation is expecting the judiciary to do what the law says and what is the right thing to do. And this will not only give more credibility to them, this time it is the case where the entire nation is involved. So their credibility is at stake, and the people of Pakistan, their wishes are that justice should be done. And I'm hopeful that justice will be provided. Whatever the comments have been given by the judges, that does not indicate any indication towards what kind of judgment is going to be given. But we are all expecting a judgment which is as per the law. Right. And we want our judiciary to be strengthened. We want the courts to take on anything that is wrong
I'm going to try and bring in Mr. Khasoor. Sorry to interrupt you there. I think you made your point clear about how firm the opposition is, or your party is at least, in its in preliminary moves to resign. Fair point. Let's bring in Mr. Khasoor. How would President Musharraf react to that? I mean, in a sense, either scenario is going to be a very difficult one for him, isn't it? I mean, if he isn't allowed to stand for a second term, he's not going to be happy. If he is allowed to stand for a second term, you've got opposition threats of permanently resigning from Parliament. What will his response be? State of emergency? Dissolve Parliament?
Well, certainly not, because the Constitution very categorically states that only if the National Assembly is dissolved, in that situation the election would be postponed. But otherwise, if the Provincial Assembly, because, you know, maximum, what can they do? They can dissolve the Provincial Assembly of Frontier, or they might make an effort to dissolve the Balochistan, which they can't do it because there's also equally good share of the members of the ruling party. So
no, but my question is, would Pervez Musharraf move to try and dissolve the Parliament or declare a state of emergency, as has been suggested?
No, he is very comfortable, you know, because what my friends are stating is, you see, the moral grounds. The question is that the courts do not lean on the moral grounds, courts lean on the legal ground. And as I stated earlier on, that his legal position, both constitutionally and legally, is very firm, and he can hold both the offices. He is fully competent to contest the presidential election for next 5 years, and his the terms which they said there are 2 terms he has exhausted. The first term was under the martial law. See, his first term as a president of Pakistan was the one which is he holding today under the Constitution. So Constitution allows a president to have 2 consecutive terms, and his second consecutive term will start now onward. So therefore, to say that he has already exhausted his 2 terms is erroneous and totally a misunderstanding of the constitutional position. Now, as far as the Pervez Musharraf is concerned, he is legally fully competent to contest, and the moment he is elected, which he will be, because even if the opposition people were to resign, that will not affect, because Constitution has categorically said without any ambiguity that only if the National Assembly is dissolved, that in that eventuality election will be postponed. Otherwise, the presidential election will take place even if the 4 assemblies, all the 4 assemblies,
right,
provincial assemblies are dissolved,
right,
the election can take place. So therefore, he is on a very firm constitutional ground,
right,
and these grounds on morality and emotionalism, and the morality, these are the areas of politics, and the people have to agitate on that.
Right. I think we've made the point very clear that politics is different from legal procedure. Let's bring in...
That's right.
Thank you. Let's bring in Mr. Hamid once again. Let's look at the question from a slightly different perspective. What difference does it make, either to the Pakistani people or to the region and the alliance with the United States, looking at the alternatives to Pervez Musharraf? I mean, are people excited about either Nawaz Sharif or Benazir Bhutto? And what difference, looking at their track record, would it make to the region and the alliance with the United States?
Well, of course, people are concerned about the future of the country, and the statesmen, they're really important for the people. And this is not a judgment which is going to be delivered in isolation from the morality. And as the courts bring in their own wisdom, they also have that tremendous authority and knowledge to see and decide in good favor of the future of the country. They don't have to depend on what a paid lawyer is saying. They see all the events and all the consequences and all the in-depth forecast for the future of the country. What this likely change is going to have tremendous effects on Pakistan's future, especially in context with its relations with the West, especially with the Americans, who have been a close ally, who have been taking Pakistan as a close ally after the events of 9/11, and of course Pakistan and the whole nation is quite concerned. What I understand their basic concern now is that they want to see the civilian rule in the country and democracy to prosperous, and
right, that's something we'll have to wait and see.
In Pakistan.
I'm sorry, we are running out of time. Raja Asad Hamid, legal correspondent for the Nation newspaper in Lahore, Sardar Ayaz Sadiq from the Pakistan Muslim League, Nawaz Party, and in Islamabad, Ahmed Raza Kasuri, Pervez Musharraf's lawyer. And thank you so much for joining us here on this edition of Inside Story. As always, we welcome your comments and suggestions. Email them to us at insidestory@aljazeera.net. For now, it's goodbye.